Okay, this morning's BCM Replacer video is just another bench demo, just to show you where we are at the moment. And if you look on the second line up from the bottom and the right hand side, you'll see the figures 31 and +3. And basically this is the amp and high voltage sensor operating, the isolated current sensor and the isolated high voltage detection sensor working, and they've been shoehorned on. So on the top of the OBDIIC&C now, there was that little board that you saw in the other video, and the yellow and brown wires at this end are the HV in. And we basically have a 500k input potential divider and a, I can't remember the exact value of the resistors there, but another bottom part of the potential divider drop the voltage down. And to ensure accuracy of the 12F683 PIC conversion, what I've actually used a voltage reference now, rather than relying on the isolated DC to DC output voltage, which was terribly unreliable. It's all over the place. So we've now got a fixed voltage reference of 2.47 volts. So the ADC conversion is done against that. That should be accurate to within about 1%. And it obviously converts it then to the PWM and out of the opto isolator there and into the OBDIIC&C as a pulse width modulation signal, and the OBDIIC&C just measures that and converts it into back into voltage again. So you'll see there it says like 31, 32 on the second line up there, and if we look at the high voltage supply down here, we'll see it's putting out 32 volts. So if I crank this up, let's put it up to 128 volts. Well, let's put it up to sort of like 65 volts, which would be, you know, probably a pack sort of voltage, general pack voltage. And we'll go back to here, and we'll see it says 164, fluctuating between 164 and 165. So that's pretty damn accurate, to be fair, for a fairly simple circuit. So that's good enough. So that's working well. Okay, so I'll just drop that back down again for safety. I don't want to be grabbing hold of it later. So I'm using 32 volts as test voltage because, and very low, adjusted to very low current, because that's safer. Can't get to 32. So it's on 32. And here we are. It just says 31, occasionally flashing to 32. So it's accurate, probably to about a volt, I would think, which is pretty good. And the other figure on the end is the +3, and that's current. So if you look at my little power supply here, it's supplying +3 amps, and I'm putting that through the Allegro current sensor there, so you can see that the current detection is working. So it's converting all this data into the data stream, and it's outputting it from the RS485 buses there. So we've got the MET SCI bus coming in with some data from the MCM, and then we've got the BAT SCI bus going out with the reconstructed packets for the MCM, as though it was the BCM sitting here. So that really, theoretically, that unit now should work. Obviously this has got the canbus in it as well, but obviously that's not connected to anything, because the point of adding the current sensor and the high voltage detection circuit was to enable people to run lithium packs without the BCM at all, or without a BMS either. But obviously if people have the Orion BMS, that can be configured to output CAN data, so you wouldn't need the high voltage detection circuit or the independent current sensor, because it comes with current sensors of its own, and the BCM Replacer would just extract that information from the CAN bus data that's coming in from the Orion BMS and then pass it on to the MCM. So basically we have the whole thing working on the bench. I will test it on the car. This is a terribly ad hoc and hacked OBDIIC&C, and I'm sure it won't be reliable electrically wise until it's sorted out. It really needs a brand new circuit board designing for it now that we have the basic concept. And I have upgraded the voltage regulator here, because that was the little tiny 100 milliamp one I had was getting pretty hot, and actually that one's getting quite warm, because the whole lot, you know, there's a few things going on now on this board, the isolated DC to DC, and the CAN bus, the RS485 chips, so it's all drawing a reasonable amount of power now. So we needed to up the regulator. I'm just seeing what temperature of the other bits and pieces are. PIC itself is nice and cool. The RS485 chips are fine. Yeah, so yeah, that's where we are at the minute. So we've got the basic thing working on the bench, detecting the high voltage and detecting the current. I haven't reused the BCM battery current sensor because that requires a plus and minus 12 volt supply and a current loop. Might be able to do that later, but for the moment the Allegro current sensor is cheap as chips. It's a straightforward 5 volt output. This one is a 200 plus 200 minus 200 amp version, which I use for my lithium conversions. It's actually the one out of my old lithium pack, and I've just repotted it, and hopefully that should be okay. So that's where we are. I've got a really busy weekend this weekend, so I may not get a chance to test it in the car till next week, but there we are.